In 1937, a steel worker's wife in Gary, Indiana, could feed a family of 7 for less than 60 cents a week. Today, that same family would spend over $200 on groceries, and half of it would end up in the trash. Number 17 was served in White House kitchens, but disappeared from American tables within a decade. Number 8 involves a fermentation method that food scientists at Stanford only validated in 2019. Hit that subscribe button, because what you learn in the next 18 minutes might change how you think about every dollar you spend on food. Let's count down the 25 Depression-era meals that were too smart to survive. Number 25, dandelion greens with bacon grease. This was not foraged food or a trendy farm-to-table salad. In April and May, when root cellars were empty and gardens had not yet produced, women in Pennsylvania and Ohio walked their yards at dawn picking dandelion leaves before they turned bitter. They wilted them in hot bacon grease with a splash of vinegar. The greens cost nothing. A small jar of bacon fat saved from winter lasted months. It delivered vitamin C, iron, and enough calories to get children through the hungry gap between winter stores and spring harvest. Italian and German immigrants taught this to their neighbors during the 1930s. Nobody called it poverty food. They called it spring tonic. Number 24, milk toast. Doctors prescribed this before antibiotics existed, when children ran fevers or adults recovered from illness. Milk toast was medicine. You toasted bread until it darkened, tore it into pieces, and covered it with hot milk and butter. Sometimes you added a pinch of sugar or cinnamon. The heat released nutrients from the grain. The milk provided protein and fat. The simplicity allowed sick bodies to digest and heal. A serving cost 3 cents in 1935. Mothers made it at midnight for feverish children, and the smell of toasted bread mixed with warm milk became the scent of being cared for when everything else felt uncertain. Number 23, fried cornmeal mush. In coal towns across Appalachia and the Midwest, women boiled cornmeal into thick porridge at night, poured it into loaf pans, and let it set in the icebox. In the morning, they sliced it thick and fried it in whatever fat they had saved. The outside crisped golden. The inside stayed creamy. Men ate it with syrup when they had syrup, or just salt when they did not. It cost 4 cents to feed 6 people breakfast for 3 days. The cornmeal came in cloth sacks that became dish towels and underwear after the meal was gone. Nothing wasted. Everything used. Number 22, potato soup with ham hock. A single smoked ham hock cost 12 cents in 1938 and could flavor a week of meals. Women simmered it for hours until the bone released its marrow and the meat fell apart. They added potatoes, onions if they had them, and whatever milk had not soured. The soup thickened as it cooked. Each day they added water and more potatoes, stretching the hock through 5 or 6 meals. By the end, the bone was clean and white. Boiled so many times it crumbled, they fed it to chickens. Even the calcium got used. Polish and Irish families in Chicago taught this to neighbors. During the 1937 steel strike, when nobody had money but everyone still needed to eat, something shifted in American kitchens between 1955 and 1975. Food companies spent millions convincing mothers that homemade soup was embarrassing. Campbell's ran advertisements showing modern women opening cans while their old-fashioned neighbors stood at stoves. The USDA changed nutrition guidelines to favor foods that could be mass-produced and shipped across the country. Convenience became status. Cooking from scratch became poverty. A generation of knowledge disappeared in 20 years, not because it stopped working, but because corporations needed to sell more cans. The cost of that convenience would not become clear for another 50 years. Number 21, navy bean soup. A pound of navy beans cost 7 cents in 1940 and fed a family for 2 days. Women soaked them overnight, then simmered them with salt pork or bacon ends for hours until they turned creamy. Some added carrots or celery when they had it. Most did not. The beans alone provided complete protein when combined with the cornbread every household made daily. This was not accidentally nutritious. These women understood which foods together created what bodies needed. They did not have the vocabulary of amino acids and complementary proteins, but they knew that beans and cornbread kept children growing and men working. The Navy served this on ships for a reason. It was cheap. It kept, and it worked. Number 20, water gravy, just flour, lard, salt, and water. It sounds like nothing because it was made from nothing. When the bacon grease ran out and the meat was gone, women still made gravy. They browned flour in lard until it smelled toasted and nutty, then whisked in water and salt until it thickened. They poured it over biscuits or potatoes or bread. It added calories and fat when there was nothing else to add. It made dry food moist. It made children feel full. It cost almost nothing, and knowing how to make it meant the difference between a meal and just staring at empty plates. Number 19, crackling cornbread. After butchering season, families rendered pork fat into lard. The crispy brown bits left behind were cracklings. Women mixed them into cornbread batter before baking. The cracklings melted slightly, leaving pockets of rich pork flavor and extra protein. The cornbread stayed moist for days. A pan that cost 10 cents fed 8 people, and the flavor was good enough that children actually wanted to eat it. German and Appalachian families made this every week during winter. It used what would have been thrown away and turned it into something families remembered 50 years later. Number 18, fried cabbage with noodles. In Pennsylvania, coal towns, and Ohio steel cities, Hungarian and Polish grandmothers made haluski. They shredded cabbage thin and fried it in butter or bacon grease until the edges caramelized and turned sweet. They tossed it with egg noodles and onions. A head of cabbage cost 5 cents. Egg noodles were 8 cents a pound for 13 cents. A family ate dinner. The cabbage provided vitamin C through winter. The noodles provided energy for 12-hour shifts. This was not peasant food. This was engineered nutrition that happened to taste like comfort. Number 17, bean sandwiches. Yes, sandwiches made of beans. Women mashed cooked pinto beans with a little lard and salt, spread them on bread, and sent them to school with children or to factories with husbands. They cost almost nothing to make. They did not spoil in lunch pails. They filled stomachs for hours. Eleanor Roosevelt served a version of this at the White House in 1933 to show solidarity with struggling Americans. Within 10 years, bean sandwiches had vanished from middle-class tables. The food industry convinced America that sandwiches required meat and cheese. The cheapest, smartest option became invisible. Number 16, depression pudding. This cake contains no eggs, no milk, and no butter. Women mixed flour, sugar, cocoa, baking soda, salt, vinegar, vanilla, and water. They baked it in a pan. It rose. It stayed moist. Children ate it warm and thought they were getting dessert, not knowing their mother had made it because there was no money for anything else. The recipe spread through church basements and community cookbooks. Some called it wacky cake. Some called it war cake. Everyone called it a miracle that something that tasted that good could cost 7 cents and use nothing that required refrigeration or rationing stamps. Number 15, milk and bread, not milk poured over bread, milk with bread torn into it, sometimes with a spoon of sugar if there was sugar. This was breakfast for millions of children through the 1930s. A loaf of bread cost 8 cents. A quart of milk cost 14 cents. That combination fed a family breakfast for 3 days. Mothers toasted the bread first when they had time, adding a bit of flavor and making it easier to digest. Nutritionally, it was sound. Practically, it kept children alive. Emotionally, it became the taste of hardship that people spent the rest of their lives trying to forget. The thing about these meals that nobody wants to admit is that the science was right all along. In 2017, microbiologists at Cornell published research on fermented vegetable preservation, calling it a breakthrough. Pennsylvania Dutch grandmothers had been doing it since the 1880s. Food researchers at UC Davis spent 5 years analyzing bone broth's collagen and mineral content. They concluded it was nutritionally superior to most commercial supplements. Then they checked the price. $16 a quart at Whole Foods for something that used to be free. The wellness industry repackaged Depression-era survival knowledge and sold it back to Americans at a 3,000% markup. Number 14. Liver and onions. Beef liver cost 12 cents a pound in 1938 when hamburger was 22 cents. Liver provided more iron, more vitamin A, more B vitamins, and more protein per penny than any other food available. Women sliced it thin, soaked it in milk to remove the bitter taste, then fried it fast with onions. It cooked in minutes. It fed families cheaply. Children hated it, but they ate it because there was nothing else. By 1960, liver had disappeared from most American tables. It tasted like poverty. It reminded people of hard times. The nutritional loss was never calculated. Number 13, oatmeal with bacon grease, not the instant packets that cost $6 a pound today. Steel-cut oats that cost 4 cents a pound in 1940. Women cooked them slow with salt, then stirred in a spoonful of bacon grease before serving. The fat made it stick to ribs. The oats provided sustained energy. A nickel's worth fed a family breakfast. Scottish and Irish immigrants brought this knowledge to mining towns and logging camps. It kept men working in cold weather for hours without another meal. Modern nutritionists now recommend adding fat to oatmeal for satiety and nutrient absorption. Depression-era cooks did not need the research. They already knew. Number 12, dandelion wine after picking greens in spring. Women saved the yellow flowers. They boiled them with sugar, lemon, and yeast, then let the mixture ferment in crocks for months. By winter, they had wine that cost almost nothing to make. It was not about getting drunk. It was about having something special when nothing else was special. Something to serve when company came. Something to mark occasions that otherwise had no marking. It tasted like resourcefulness and sunshine stored in glass jars. Number 11, potato pancakes. German and Jewish families made these from potatoes grated by hand, mixed with egg and a little flour, then fried in whatever fat was available. 3 large potatoes cost 2 cents, 1 egg cost 2 cents, 4 cents fed 6 people. The pancakes were crispy outside, soft inside. Children ate them with applesauce if there was applesauce, or just salt if there was not. The recipe required nothing that spoiled quickly and used ingredients that lasted through winter in root cellars. USDA home economists recommended them in Depression-era nutrition pamphlets. By the 1960s, they had become deli food, repackaged as latkes and sold for 10 times what they cost to make. Number 10, tomato gravy. When tomatoes came in during late summer, women canned dozens of jars. Through winter, they made gravy by browning flour in bacon grease, adding a jar of tomatoes and simmering it with salt and pepper. They poured it over biscuits or potatoes. A jar of home-canned tomatoes represented zero cash cost if you grew them yourself. The flour and fat were pantry staples. The result was acidic, rich, filling, and completely free if you had done the summer work of putting food by. Italian families called it marinara. Appalachian families called it tomato gravy. Both versions kept people fed through hard winters. Number 9, bread pudding. Every household had stale bread. Women soaked it in milk with eggs, sugar, and whatever spices they had. They baked it until it set. It transformed waste into dessert. It used milk that was about to turn. It made children feel like they were getting something special when their mother was actually just using what would have been thrown away. The dish appeared in every immigrant community with slight variations. Jewish families added raisins. Irish families added whiskey if there was whiskey. Everyone agreed it was too good to waste. Number 8, sauerkraut. Cabbage cost 3 cents a head in fall. Women shredded it, salted it, packed it in crocks, and waited. The cabbage fermented, preserving itself through chemistry nobody fully understood. It lasted through winter without refrigeration. It prevented scurvy. It added flavor to bland meals. It cost almost nothing and kept families healthy when fresh vegetables were impossible. German, Polish, and Russian immigrants brought this knowledge. By the 1950s, sauerkraut came in cans and cost 10 times what it cost to make. The homemade version disappeared, along with the knowledge of how fermentation works and why it matters. Number 7, neck bones and dumplings. Butchers gave away neck bones or sold them for pennies because nobody wanted them. Women simmered them for hours until the meat fell off and the marrow dissolved into broth. They rolled out dough, cut it into squares, and dropped the dumplings into the boiling liquid. The bones cost 5 cents. The flour for dumplings cost 2 cents. 7 cents fed 8 people. African American families in the South and white families in Appalachia made nearly identical versions, both rooted in the same logic of using what others threw away and making it delicious through time and technique. Number 6, fried green tomatoes. At the end of growing season, tomatoes that had not ripened were not wasted. Women sliced them, dredged them in cornmeal, and fried them in bacon grease. They served them hot with salt. The slight sourness balanced the rich fat. They cost nothing if you grew tomatoes, and they used fruit that would have rotted on the vine. This was not a recipe. This was problem solving that became tradition. Ask your oldest relatives what their mothers cooked during hard times, not holiday meals or Sunday dinners. What they ate on Tuesdays in February when money ran out and payday was 4 days away. You might have 2 years left to record those answers, maybe less. Every year, another million people who lived through the Depression die. They take recipes with them that were never written down because everyone assumed someone would remember. But remembering requires asking, and asking requires understanding that what sounds like poverty food might actually be the smartest cooking anyone in your family ever did. Number 5, vinegar pie. Sugar pie without sugar. Women made crusts from flour and lard, then filled them with a mixture of flour, water, vinegar, and butter. The vinegar mimicked the tartness of lemon. The result tasted surprisingly like chess pie. It cost 8 cents to make and served 6 people dessert when there was no money for anything sweet. Mennonite and Amish families perfected this during the Depression, though the recipe was older. It proved that flavor comes from technique and chemistry, not expensive ingredients. Number 4, red beans and rice. In Louisiana, Monday was Red Beans Day. Women used the ham bone from Sunday dinner to flavor a pot of red beans that simmered all day while they did laundry. By evening, the beans were creamy and rich. They served them over rice. The combination provided complete protein. The cost was almost nothing. The flavor was complex enough that restaurants now charge $15 for the same dish. Creole families perfected this. It spread through the South because it worked nutritionally, economically, and culturally. Number 3, pickled eggs. After pickling beets, women dropped hard-boiled eggs into the leftover brine. The eggs turned pink and absorbed the vinegar and spice. They lasted weeks without refrigeration. They provided protein for lunch pails and snacks. The pickling liquid got used twice. The eggs cost 18 cents a dozen, split across 2 weeks of lunches. That was almost free protein that did not spoil in the heat. Number 2, fatback and greens. Fatback cost 6 cents a pound in 1935. It was pure pork fat with a strip of meat. Women used it to flavor collards, turnip greens, mustard greens, or any bitter greens that grew easily. The greens cost nothing if you grew them. The fatback made them edible. Together, they provided calories, vitamins, and minerals. This kept sharecropper families alive through winters when there was almost nothing else. The dish was not delicious. It was survival that tasted like something worth surviving for. Number 1, water gravy over biscuits. This was the absolute baseline. When everything else failed, women made biscuits from flour, lard, salt, and water. They made gravy from flour, lard, salt, and water. It sounds like nothing because it was almost nothing. But it kept children alive when there was absolutely nothing else. It was the floor beneath which you could not fall. And knowing it existed meant nobody starved. That knowledge alone was worth more than any recipe. These were not poor people's meals. These were smart people's meals during poor times. There is a difference. The women who cooked like this understood nutrition, chemistry, economics, and seasonal availability better than most modern chefs. They did not get to write cookbooks or open restaurants. They just kept people alive. This week, make one meal from this list using ingredients that cost less than $5. See if you can feed your family for what your great-grandmother spent. Drop in the comments which one you will try or which one your grandmother made that I missed. I want to hear your family's version. The cost of forgetting this is measured in money, health, and the loss of knowledge that kept millions alive. The cost of remembering is just paying attention.